I love doing shellfish on the egg. One of the really nice things about them is it's so quick cooking. You can make an appetizer and then do the rest of the meal on the egg as well. The other nice thing is people don't realize how well liquid picks up the smoke inside an egg. So one of the nice things is as we put the beer and the butter and everything in there, it really picks up a lot of the flavor. It's not just the mussels that are doing it. But we're going to start off by trying to build a little bit of depth of flavor. So we've got our egg at about 400 direct heat. We're just going to take some beautiful bacon and we're going to lay it right on there. Just get some nice grill marks and char on there. This is going to go into the pot next, but I want to get some of that grill flavor built up on it first. And then also same thing with some of these little cambray onions. Just going to put them directly on there and get a little char going on them. And then it is French cooking, so you know, as Julia Child says, butter makes it better. This is a beautiful local butter. You know, getting a good quality butter is important. You know, just a little spoonful like that right in there. Give it a swirl around. We got our Dutch oven in here for about 10 minutes ahead of starting, just so it gets nice and hot. We're not waiting for it to heat up. And then the next thing we're going to go in with, I have some chile caribe. You could use any hot pepper, kind of make it fit whatever your heat profile is. So, you know, if you want to do a serrano, jalapeno, you can go habanero if you want. I just sliced them nice and thinly. I didn't take out the seeds because I like the heat, but again, that's a personal choice. We're going to put those in there. Start them caramelizing because we want to actually caramelize some of those natural sugars because then you'll sort of get the sweetness of the pepper as well as the heat. And then we're going to go in there with this total is about 6 cloves of garlic. We're going to use half for this recipe, so 3 cloves. Very exact measurement, you can tell there. And you can see we've got a nice little sizzle going. And you can take the bacon now that it's starting to render a little bit and just sort of brush it along those onions. Some of that bacon fat will render down into the onion and get them cooking nicely too. Okay, now let's talk about the mussels. These are just some PEI mussels, nice small sweet ones. I like them smaller. I think they're more tender. I think they have more natural sweetness, but again, up to you. Let me find one that has a beard on it so I can show you what to look for. I guess thankfully these are pretty clean ones because beards kind of a lot of work. I'll find one somewhere in here. Okay, so you always want to debeard your mussel. I don't know if you can zoom in and get a close-up of that, but that's the little thing that they attach themselves to the ropes with. You just want to make sure you pull it out. A lot of times it has grit, dirt, stuff like that on it. And then take your mussels, give them a little sprinkle of salt, and just run them under cold water for about 10 minutes. That just helps purge the mussels, gets any little bits of sand, grit, anything like that out of there. So now our garlic has started to caramelize a little bit, and so have our peppers. Our bacon's starting to get a nice sizzle on it. And the onions are starting to get a little bit of a char too. So now we're just going to go in to the pot with our mussels and just give them a good stir around so they get a nice coating of that fat in there. And now we're going to add just a tiny bit of salt. You want to kind of season in stages. It'll actually help get your seasoning throughout the dish. You'll end up using less salt that way. Pull that out, you can give it a nice stir. Now we're just going to lay the bacon right on top of those onions so that fat just sort of gets in there. Now the next most important ingredient, we're going to start off with the beer. I like to use any lager style beer for this, so you don't want to use an IPA because you don't really want that hop forward element that'll start sort of fighting with the mussels. You want the shellfish to still shine through. The beer just gives it some nice body. And we're really just making the broth with this beer and the mussels, the juice that they're giving out themselves. So old cook trick there, opening a beer with tongs. And you want to buy a big enough beer so that there's enough for the mussels and some for the person cooking. You know, you got to stay hydrated during these things. So you're going to use about 10 ounces. And then these guys all have a nice little mark on them, so we're just going to pull them off. And just do a rough chop. You don't have to be too fine with it. Provençal cooking is kind of like the rustic country cooking of France. This isn't like the highfalutin Parisian grand cuisine stuff. It's really more about good ingredients and sharing them with good friends and stuff like that. So all that into the pot. One more little stir just so that bacon gets mixed in with the onions and the chilies and everything like that. Oh, one bacon was trying to make a run for it there. I always say this recipe is kind of cheating because you're using the 3 great B's of cooking beer, butter, and bacon all in one, but that's the reason why it's so delicious. So, and then we're just going to pop that closed, let those mussels sit there and steam. It'll take maybe 5 minutes and they'll be ready to go. Now it's time to check on our mussels. They should be ready by now. And you can see our mussels have all opened up nicely. You can see the beer is cooked down a little bit. So now we're just going to finish it off with a nice healthy dollop of butter. And then you can't have seafood with broth without some kind of bread. Or you could, but it wouldn't be very French. So just a quick little butter smear on there. Because let's face it, one of the best parts of this recipe is dipping the bread into the bacon, butter, beer broth there, combined with all those mussel juices and everything like that. So there we go. And there we are. I'm just going to eat it straight out of the Dutch oven. You can be fancy and put it on a plate if you want. And my favorite part about mussels, just get in there, pop one open, and use nature's spoon to get in there and get the broth. So it's delicious.